Daddy, I'm so hungry. Can I eat with you? The words were small, almost polite, but they struck Henry Cole with the force of a blow to the chest. He lifted his eyes from the pristine white plate in front of him. She couldn't have been more than 4. Her hoodie hung off one shoulder, stained and frayed. Her knees were scraped. Her curly hair framed a face too serious for a child her age, and her eyes, dark, wide, painfully earnest, were fixed on him with absolute certainty. Henry didn't answer. For a split second he thought this was some kind of mistake, a dare, a distraction. But the girl didn't laugh. She didn't look around for approval. She only swallowed hard and repeated, softer this time, as if afraid she'd asked for too much. "Daddy, I'm really hungry." The word hit him again. Daddy. A chill ran through his spine. Henry blinked once, twice. The child didn't flinch. She clutched the edge of the tablecloth like it was her last tether to dignity. "Please, Daddy, I'm hungry." His first instinct was denial, reflex, logical, cold. "I'm not your father," the words pressed against the back of his throat. But they didn't come out because she looked exactly like someone he used to know. No, not used to know, someone he'd lost. Before Henry could speak, a sharp voice cut through the silence. "What do you think you're doing?" A tall man in a dark suit stormed toward them, his expression twisted with anger and embarrassment. The restaurant manager. He didn't look at Henry at first. His eyes locked onto the child like she was a stain on the floor. "Where are your parents?" he snapped. "You can't be here." The girl flinched. I just wanted to eat with my daddy," she said, pointing at Henry with trembling fingers. The manager laughed, a short, ugly sound. "That man is not your father. Don't lie." Henry finally found his voice. "Wait," but the manager had already grabbed the girl by the arm. "Come on, we don't allow begging here. You're disturbing the guests." "No!" Mila cried. "Daddy!" She twisted, fighting the grip with surprising strength, her small hands reaching desperately toward Henry's table. "Please, Daddy, don't let him take me." The word ripped through Henry's chest. Every instinct he had, every carefully trained reflex to remain composed, collapsed at once. "Let go of her," Henry said, standing abruptly. The manager glanced at him, startled, but his grip tightened instead. "Sir, I'm so sorry about this. These kids know how to manipulate." Mila screamed when he yanked her back. She kicked, lost her balance, and in the struggle, the manager shoved her aside to regain control. She hit the stone floor hard. The sound was sickening. Mila cried out, curling instinctively, her hands scraping against the ground. A thin line of blood appeared on her forehead where it had struck the edge of a planter. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Henry exploded. "Are you out of your mind?" he roared. The manager froze. "Sir, get away from her now!" Henry dropped to his knees without hesitation, ignoring the murmurs, the phones already lifting around them. He reached for Mila carefully, his hands shaking as he cupped her face. "Hey," he said, voice breaking. "Hey, look at me." Her sobs hitched when she saw him close. "I didn't mean to be bad," she cried. "I just wanted to stay with you." Something inside Henry shattered completely. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said fiercely. He pulled his handkerchief from his pocket and pressed it gently to her forehead. "Nothing. Do you hear me?" She nodded weakly, still crying. Henry looked up at the manager, his eyes cold in a way that made the man step back. "If you touch her again, I will personally make sure you never work in this city again." The manager paled. "Sir, I didn't know." "You knew she was a child," Henry said. "That should have been enough." He turned back to Mila and lifted her carefully into his arms. She stiffened at first, unused to being held, then clung to his jacket like he might disappear if she let go. "Daddy!"
she whispered uncertainly. Henry closed his eyes. "I'm here," he said. "I've got you." The waiter approached hesitantly. "Sir, should I call someone?" "Yes," Henry said without looking away from the child. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. "But not the police. Not yet, Esaísta." He dialed a number from memory. "Gregory," he said when the line connected, "I need you at the Broadmoor rooftop. Immediately. Bring a medical kit, and I want a full background search. Quiet." He ended the call and looked down at Mila again. "Can you tell me your name?" he asked softly. "Mila," she sniffed. "That's a beautiful name," he said, and meant it. She looked at the table, then back at him. "Can I still eat, or am I in trouble?" Henry swallowed hard. "You're not in trouble," he said, "and yes, you can eat." He carried her to the chair across from him and sat her down gently. When the waiter returned with soup, bread, and water, Mila stared at it like it might vanish. "If I eat," she whispered, "you won't send me away?" Henry met her eyes, the weight of every unmade choice in his life pressing down on him. "No," he said, "I won't." She took the smallest bite, watching him the entire time. As she ate, Henry noticed the way her hands trembled, the way she tried to make herself small. This wasn't just hunger, this was a child who had learned that kindness could be revoked at any moment. After a while, she looked up again. "You look like my daddy," she said. He was called Eric. The name hit Henry like a blow. The fork slipped from his hand, clattering against the plate. Eric. A ghost from a life he had buried, a mistake he had refused to acknowledge. Mila's eyes widened. "Did I say something wrong?" "No," Henry said, his voice barely steady. "You said something important." He looked at her, really looked at her, and understood with terrifying clarity that this moment was not an accident, it was a reckoning. And as the city moved on around them, indifferent and loud, Henry Cole realized that for the first time in years, he didn't want to run. He wanted to stay. If you felt Henry's heartbreak, like this video and comment where you're watching from. You might just find someone nearby watching with you. Henry Cole didn't care. He had spent a lifetime caring too much about appearances, about maintaining distance, control, and detachment. But at this moment, holding a trembling little girl who had called him daddy and bled in his presence, nothing else in the world mattered. Mila sat on the chair beside him now, clutching a napkin gently pressed against the cut on her forehead. Henry had handed it to her himself, kneeling in front of her like a man with no pride left to protect. She dabbed the wound carefully, as if afraid to use too much of the cloth, afraid to be too visible. "Does it hurt?" he asked, his voice quieter than usual. She shrugged. "Not really. I've had worse." The simplicity of her answer knocked the breath from his lungs. Worse? At 4 years old, she had already normalized pain? He reached for his water glass, but his hand shook as he lifted it. Mila noticed, then quickly looked away, as though the sight of his vulnerability scared her more than her own blood. "Do you want more bread?" he asked. She nodded once, small and polite. Henry broke off a piece and slid it toward her on a clean plate. She picked it up like a squirrel taking food from an unfamiliar hand, grateful but expecting it to be snatched back at any moment. "I called someone," he said after a moment. "He's a friend. He's going to help us figure out where you belong." Mila's chewing slowed. "I belong here," she said softly. "With you?" Henry blinked. The words caught him off guard, though they shouldn't have. Everything about this child, her gaze, her plea, her scream when the manager tried to pull her away, had pointed to one truth. She believed with her whole heart that he was hers. "You said your daddy's name was Eric," he said carefully. She nodded. "Daddy, Eric." Henry swallowed. The name echoed through his head like a forgotten memory dredged from the bottom of a locked drawer. "Do you remember where you used to live?" "With Daddy. Then after the fire, the lady took me at night." "What lady?" I don't know her name.
She smelled like bleach. Said Daddy was sleeping too long, so that I had to go with her now. Mila's fingers twisted the edge of the napkin. She said nobody else would want me. Henry's throat tightened. He fought the urge to call Gregory and tell him to find the woman immediately, but he knew better than to make decisions fueled only by rage. Not when a child was watching. Not when every word would shape how safe she felt in his care. Gregory's on his way, he said instead. He'll help us find out more. Mila didn't look up. Do you think Daddy's still sleeping? Henry couldn't lie. No, he said gently. I don't think he's sleeping anymore. She didn't cry. That was the worst part. She just nodded, like she already knew, like she'd known for days and had been waiting for someone to say it out loud. They sat in silence. The soup in front of her cooled, untouched. Finally, Henry pushed his chair back, stood, and offered his hand. Come with me, he said. Mila stared at it, hesitant. Where? She whispered. To somewhere quieter, safer. I won't leave you. Her small hands slid into his cool, fragile, trusting. They moved through the restaurant like ghosts, eyes following their every step. The same people who had ignored her a few minutes ago now watched her as though she were part of a strange, unfolding drama. Henry ignored them. In the private lounge downstairs, away from the curious diners, Gregory was already waiting, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored gray suit. His expression was calm, but his eyes narrowed slightly when he saw the child. This her? He asked quietly. Henry nodded. Her name is Mila? Gregory crouched slightly, his voice kind and slow. Hi, Mila. I'm Greg. I'm a friend of your friend's. Mila looked at Henry for confirmation. He nodded, and she gave a tiny wave. Can he do something for me? Henry asked her. Greg needs to check your arm, just to make sure you're okay. Can he do that? Mila hesitated, then nodded. Gregory examined her quickly, careful not to scare her, then looked up. She's bruised, scraped, but nothing broken. We should get her checked out at the hospital. Henry exhaled. I'll take her. Gregory raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? I can escort her if... No, Henry interrupted. She stays with me. Gregory didn't argue. He handed over a folder. I did a fast check on the name she gave. Eric, fire in the Bronx 2 weeks ago. Man in his 30s, no ID, found dead inside a tenement. Listed as transient, no next of kin. Henry took the file slowly. Eric, he whispered. Sound familiar? Henry nodded once. I think he was someone I used to know. Gregory didn't press. What do you want to do? Henry looked down at Mila, who now clung to his pant leg. I want to find out who she is, who he was. I want answers. Gregory handed him another sheet. Start here. DNA test, paperwork, medical evaluation. She's not a stray dog, Henry. If you want to protect her, you need to do it the right way. I know, Henry said, but something in his voice shook. As Mila leaned into his side, Henry realized something terrifying and undeniable. She had already decided he was her family. Now the question was, would he become the man she already believed he was? He tightened his arm around her shoulder. We're going to the hospital, he said softly. Then we'll figure out the rest. Mila didn't ask what came next. She just nodded, because for the first time in days, maybe weeks, someone wasn't letting go. The drive to St. Luke's Hospital was quiet. Mila sat in the back seat beside Henry, a clean towel now pressed gently against the shallow cut on her forehead. She hadn't said a word since they left the rooftop restaurant. Her small fingers toyed with the seatbelt buckle, not to unzip it, but as if trying to reassure herself it was real, that she was really in a car, really sitting next to the man she still believed was her father. Henry kept glancing at her, uncertain of what to say. He wasn't used to silence feeling this heavy. Silence was usually his armor, his method of control, but with Mila beside him, it felt more like a test, one he wasn't sure he was passing. The city blurred past the tinted windows. Autumn leaves drifted across the road, horns, chatter, sirens in the distance, but inside the car, only the hum of the engine filled the space between them. You hungry again? Henry finally asked. Mila shook her head. You sure? Another nod. Quiet, too quiet. Henry leaned back, watching her from the corner of his eye. You don't have to be afraid of me. I'm not afraid, she said almost defensively. I'm afraid of them. Who? The people who take you away. The words twisted inside him.
No one's taking you anywhere, Mila, not without my say. She looked up, eyes wide. Because you're the boss. Henry smiled faintly. Something like that. The hospital came into view, white stone, glass walls, and the constant shuffle of life and loss moving through its halls. Gregory had already called ahead. No emergency room, no waiting in line. Henry wasn't interested in headlines, and he wasn't handing Mila over to a crowded triage desk. They were met at a side entrance by a nurse and a young pediatrician, Dr. Patel, warm-eyed and calm-voiced. She crouched to Mila's level with a practiced ease that immediately softened the child's shoulders. "Hi there, Mila. I'm Dr. Patel. I'm just going to take a look at your bump. Okay? Nothing scary." Mila didn't answer, but she looked at Henry, who gave her a small nod. That seemed to be enough. Inside a quiet exam room, Mila perched on the edge of the hospital bed. Henry stood nearby, arms crossed, still in his dark blazer, watching every movement. He was silent but present, protective. "She's got a minor cut," Dr. Patel confirmed, dabbing gently with antiseptic. "We'll clean it, no stitches needed. Some bruising on the shoulder and elbow, but no signs of deeper trauma. Physically, she's holding up." Henry raised an eyebrow. "And emotionally?" Dr. Patel's expression grew more cautious. "That's harder to say. She's showing signs of stress-induced suppression, hypervigilance. She's clearly been neglected, possibly abandoned. Can we run a DNA test?" The doctor hesitated. "Is there a legal guardian present?" "I'm working on that," Henry replied. "For now, let's assume I am." Dr. Patel didn't argue. She nodded and signaled for a nurse to collect the necessary kit. "Mila," the doctor said gently, "we're going to take a little swab from your cheek. It won't hurt, I promise." Mila barely blinked. The nurse swabbed her mouth quickly and efficiently. She stayed still the whole time, as if she'd learned long ago not to make anything harder for grown-ups. Once the test was done, Mila leaned against the wall, clearly tired. Her legs dangled off the edge of the bed, not quite touching the floor. Dr. Patel lowered her voice as she pulled Henry aside. "You said her father's name might have been Eric?" "That's what she told me." Dr. Patel glanced at the clipboard in her hands. "We had an unidentified male brought in 2 weeks ago from a building fire in the Bronx, burned beyond recognition. The only clue we had was a melted dog tag with the name Eric C. No confirmed ID. No one claimed the body." Henry's jaw clenched. "Do you still have him?" She nodded. "We had him stored pending further investigation. No known relatives came forward. We've been waiting for a match through the missing persons system. I want his DNA compared to hers, quietly." Dr. Patel looked at him more closely now. "You think she's his daughter?" "I know she is." The doctor nodded solemnly. "I'll start the comparison, but Henry, what if this turns out the way I think it will? There's going to be a lot of red tape ahead. CPS, the courts, custody issues. I don't care. Just find out." 18. Back inside the room, Mila was lying on her side, curled up. Her shoes, too small and worn, sat neatly on the floor beside her. She was watching Henry through half-lidded eyes. "Are you going to leave now?" she asked. Henry pulled a chair closer and sat beside her, elbows on his knees. "No," he said. "I'm not going anywhere. My other daddy left when the fire came. I waited. He didn't come back. He didn't want to leave you." Mila didn't respond right away. He said, "If anything ever happened, I should look for someone who looked like him." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You look like him." Henry sat still, trying to breathe past the lump in his throat. "I think he meant you," she added. He swallowed hard. Outside the room, the city moved on. Children were born, lives ended, ambulances came and went. But inside that small corner of the hospital, time slowed. The only clue we had was a melted dog tag with the name Eric C. No confirmed ID. No one claimed the body. Henry's jaw clenched. "Do you still have him?" She nodded. "We had him stored pending further investigation. No known relatives came forward. We've been waiting for a match through the missing persons system. I want his DNA compared to hers, quietly." Dr. Patel looked at him more closely now. "You think she's his daughter?" "I know she is." The doctor nodded solemnly. I'll start the comparison, but Henry, what if this turns out the way I think it will? There's going to be a lot of red tape ahead. CPS, the courts, custody issues. I don't care. Just find out. 18. Back inside the room, Mila was lying on her side, curled up. Her shoes, too small and worn, sat neatly on the floor beside her. She was watching Henry through half-lidded eyes. "Are you going to leave now?" she asked. Henry pulled a chair closer and sat beside her, elbows on his knees. "No," he said. "I'm not going anywhere. My other daddy left when the fire came. I waited. He didn't come back. He didn't want to leave you." Mila didn't respond right away. He said, "If anything ever happened, I should look for someone who looked like him." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You look like him." Henry sat still, trying to breathe past the lump in his throat. "I think he meant you," she added. He swallowed hard. Outside the room, the city moved on. Children were born, lives ended, ambulances came and went. But inside that small corner of the hospital, time slowed. Henry reached into his jacket and pulled out a photo from his wallet, one he hadn't looked at in years. It was old, creased at the corners, showing a much younger version of himself and another man who looked nearly identical, a face from his past. He handed it to Mila. "That's him," she said immediately. "That's my daddy. That's Eric." Henry closed his eyes, his heart thudding. So it was true. All of it. And now she was his. Not by blood, not yet confirmed, but by something deeper, something chosen, something still salvageable. That night, Henry Cole didn't return to his penthouse. Instead, he sat in a quiet waiting area just off the pediatric ward at Steve Luke's hospital, one floor below the maternity wing where he'd once paced the halls, waiting for a child who never came home. Now, 20 years later, another child was asleep in a hospital bed down the hall. A child who had called him Daddy without knowing the depth of what she said. A child who shared the eyes, the fear, and he now knew the blood of the son he had turned away decades ago. He held the photo in his hands again, the one he'd given to Mila. Two young men, Henry and Eric, shoulder to shoulder at a youth shelter fundraiser. Same jawline, same thick eyebrows, but different smiles. Henry's was polite, restrained. Eric's was hopeful, honest. He hadn't seen that face in 20 years. Gregory returned, walking quietly, holding a plain manila envelope.